All right, so let's get into some ancient and forgotten diagnostics and troubleshooting concerning point ignition systems. Now, before I go any further, I already see you guys in the comments, so let's take care of this first, okay? Points are dumb. Convert it to electronic. Put a Pertronics in there. MSD. Yeah, I know. I'm fully aware of all of the shortcomings and drawbacks of a point ignition system. And you are right. You are a champion, and we all value your opinion. But let's learn about this stuff anyway. Because I got a lot of younger guys on this channel that follow us because we talk about carburetors and distributors and points and stuff like that. Younger guys. And, you know, they're kind of looking for the alternative. You got the runaway, mutant, decadent technological society that we're all trapped in. And some people are just looking for the warm fuzzies of analog engine control. I'm one of them. I've been using points forever. It's my preferred ignition system. I've used them in every application from daily driver to literally top fuel dragster. And so it's a subject that's close to my heart. But there are some things, and we've covered on this channel, we've done every kind of point ignition, video you can imagine. There are some forgotten things because things that were common knowledge back in the day have just kind of like passed along. And so because these things are oddities now, a lot of that knowledge is lost. So I want to cover a few things, some small things that are universal, but this is, if you're going to mess around with these things, it's something you need to be aware of. So, troubleshooting and diagnostics. I'll give you the whole scenario, and so, because you need to understand the picture, and this is probably something you're going to come across. All right. So, recently, a friend of a friend contacts me. They had just bought a 1960s Dodge Coronet with a 318, point ignition system. The car had all original parts, had been sitting for a long period of time. So they screw around with it and they get it running. And it doesn't run bad, right? It idles smooth, it runs, they drive it around the yard, it's all good. And now they decide to go to the next step and give it a full electronic tune-up. So, plugs, wires, cap, rotor, points, condenser, the standard package. They put all of that in, go to fire the car up, and it doesn't really want to start as quickly. It idles a little rough, and it won't take any gas. As soon as they try to give it any gas, it pops, it bucks, it farts, it backfires, it does all sorts of stuff. And then it'll idle just so-so. So they're seeing that the problem is concerning the engine overall, so it's not going to be a bad plug, it's not going to be a bad wire. So they focus in on the cap, the rotor, the points, the condenser, things that will affect the whole, the way the engine runs as a whole, as opposed to just like a random misfire. So they start swapping parts back. Now, important to note at this point, when they installed the new points, they did it correctly. They went by the manufacturer's specification, which is 17 thousandths of an inch gap, which should achieve 30 degrees of dwell. Important to note, they set it up correctly. So now they start backtracking. Maybe the new cap is defective, it's got a crack or something, and it's causing that. So they swap the old cap back on, same problem. They had heard about a problem with condensers, which is true. There's been a run of bad condensers over the last several years. So they swapped the condenser back out to the old one. Same problem. Now they're looking at the points. Points look fine. Everything, is up to snuff and they're gapped correctly. But they swapped the old points in just the same. And again, they gapped them at 17 thousandths of an inch, the way they're supposed to. Same thing. Car won't run. It will run, but it runs like hell, right? It won't take any gas. They double check themselves. It's gapped correctly. The contacts are clean. They don't understand what's going on. And so at this point, they get a hold of me. And they run through the whole process, just like I explained it to you. Now, because I'm around since the year of the flood, right? I'm familiar with all of these things, and I've come across this problem before. So I tell them, close the point gap up to 10 thousandths of an inch and see what happens. So they do that. They close the point gap up, they fire the car up, runs perfect, idles perfect, drives down the road perfect, no problems. What happened? All right, So like I said, this was very common back in the day, and if you screw around with these cars today, it's likely you're going to come across this. The distributor itself needed to be rebuilt. The distributor itself has a bad bushing. So here's what happens. When the bushing goes bad, so now you're going to set the points on this, right? So the procedure is you rotate the distributor, or you crank the motor until you've got the cam lobe, right, on the distributor shaft up against the rubbing block, and now that's where you're going to set your gap, right? But if the shaft itself is not centered exactly, if it's not held centered, if the bushing inside of it is worn, the spring pressure from the points is going to push the shaft all the way in one direction. So now when you're gapping the points, you're gapping it with the shaft cocked over. The spring pressure is enough to do that. Now, that's all fine and dandy when the engine is off. But now you start it up, and at idle, there's enough of a spinning top effect that's going to want to center the shaft. And when it centers the shaft, it opens up the point gap. So just using round numbers, if there's, let's say, 10,000ths of an inch worth of wear to the bushing that's supposed to hold the center shaft steady, if there's 10,000ths of an inch wear there, once you start the engine and this thing straightens up, the shaft straightens up, your 17,000ths of an inch, half of the 10 would be 5, becomes 22,000ths of an inch. Not quite enough to make it run that badly, but let's say you're at a 20,000ths play. Now your 17,000ths becomes 27,000ths. It's not going to go anywhere. You're going to give it any gas at all, and it's just going to fall on its face. That's what was happening there. So how does this occur? All right, now in the old days, points distributors all had a lubrication port just like this one. So anytime you were to give it a tune-up or freshen things up, clean and gap the points, you'd open this, you'd drop a couple of drops of oil down in there, and it was just standard procedure. Now sometime in the late 60s, middle of the late 60s, the manufacturers started to do away with these lubrication ports. And as a result, the only lubrication the internal bushings get is from whatever oily vapors happen to migrate up the shaft into the distributor body. So this is an identical distributor to one that they were dealing with, and you could see on the center shaft these witness marks, a shiny one here and a shiny one there, and that's where the shaft rides on the bushings. And if you look down here inside the shaft, or inside the distributor, you could see the bushing, the top bushing right there. So that's what's happening now. You got all of this slop. So if you gap the points correctly with the spring pressure pushing the shaft in one direction, as soon as it fires up and the shaft wants to center itself, the gap opens way up. The repair to that is we'll rebuild the distributor, either knock another bushing in or get a rebuilt distributor. Or at that point, if you can't find a rebuilt distributor, that's a good time to throw a Petronix or something in there, which isn't going to be sensitive to movement in the shaft, the same way a set of points would. So file that in the back of your head for, next time you come across a problem, a mysterious running problem, and right away you're blaming parts. Before you fire the parts cannon, check the side-to-side play on the center shaft. And if it's more than just a couple of thousandths or two of an inch, it's worn enough to affect the way it's going to run. Now, also another thing, distributor shafts are in two parts, right? So you've got the bottom part, which, the drive shaft of it, and then you've got the top part that's attached to the advance weights. Well, there can be wear in this, because the top part is supposed to be able to move slightly independently, at least enough for the advance weights to change its phasing. It has to be able to move independently of the bottom. You can have wear here also. So that's another thing to be aware of. Now, while you're in the process of checking your point gap, so you're going to set your points, let's say, here. Okay, you're going to set your points up with the distributor in this position. Check yourself afterwards. So after you've set the points in this position, rotate the motor one complete revolution, 360 degrees, which will rotate the distributor 180 degrees. Check the point gap there, and that'll tell you if the top part of the shaft has significant play or is bent, because that happens too over time. Now, in the early days, when engines generally operated at very low RPM, 2,000, 3,000 RPM, distributor rotors were very simple. You just have the center shaft, or the part that would fit over the center shaft, and the contacts. Once the highway travel days began, let's say in the late 1950s or into the early 1960s, they started to incorporate these counterweights into distributor rotors. So if you're dealing with a very early car that has, or a very early engine, that has that one-sided rotor, if possible, find a later version that has a counterweight, and that'll also keep or reduce the amount of wear that you're going to find on that shaft. So simple stuff, and like I said, this was all common knowledge back in the day, but there aren't enough regular mechanics that mess around with these things anymore to understand it. There are little things that go wrong and can really wreck your day. People will spend a lot of money firing the parts cannon at something like this. Check the distributor shaft wear. So now here's just a quick bonus, and this is like really universal. When you are playing around with points distributors, the points and the condensers are both held with these little tiny screws. Right? And generally speaking, distributors, with very few exceptions, distributors aren't positioned in such a way that you could just like conveniently reach in and grab these things with your fingers, right? Or guide them out with your fingers. When you do this stuff on a regular basis, you get, oops, hang on. When you do this stuff on a regular basis, you get into the habit of putting the screw in there first and then guiding the whole assembly down into the distributor while pushing the screw down with a screwdriver. It's a technique. Oh, this is already magnetized. What I was going to show you is, if you get yourself one of these, this is a magnetizer. This is a Craftsman one. I've seen all different variations of these. Before you start working on your distributor, before you start going for those little screws that hold the condenser and the points in, get one of these and magnetize the screwdriver that you're dealing with. There are other methods to magnetizing a screwdriver, but this is like really convenient. You just keep this in your toolbox. So that this way, when you do go to pick up one of these screws or handle one of these screws, it's stuck to the end of the screwdriver. Unless you do that, it's not going to drop inside. That was the first hard lesson all of us learned back in the 70s when we were mechanics and screwing around with this stuff. The very first hard lesson we learned was that dropping one of these screws meant having to pull the distributor out and fiddle around and turn it upside down to get the screw to fall back out again. So always magnetize your stuff before you start screwing around. So there you go, very simple, very straightforward, easy to diagnose if you know what's going on, if you know how these things are constructed. And if you do have a lubrication port on your distributor, like this one, make sure every time you service it, you give it a tune-up, you give it an oil change, whatever you're doing, a couple of drops of oil down this, and it goes a long way towards maintaining that bushing, the upper bushing. Lifespan of these without lubrication, generally 60,000 miles or so, and they're going to have enough play that you're going to be affected by this. All right, that's it, guys. I hope you got something out of that. I'll see you tomorrow.